Number 1.
So, it was a few years back. I was about 11 or 10. Not too sure. I was at a campground with my family. We were camping there with my grandparents. At the time, I was hanging out with my cousin. We had bicycles, so we decided to go into the woods during the day to ride around the trails because it was all hilly and good for bikes. While we were there, in the woods, we met these girls who said they owned the forest, and we made friends with them. They told us to come back whenever we want. A while after leaving the woods, it was around 11 at night, and my cousin and I, we decided to go back into the woods and just walk them. As we first walked into the woods, a guy quickly ran past us. So me and my cousin laughed about getting scared and decided to continue with our little trip. But as soon as we walked farther and farther into the woods, we noticed a man standing in an opening, just still, not moving. We quickly hid behind a tree and kept watching him. After about 5 minutes of watching, my cousin moved a little and stepped on a stick. The stick broke and made that classic stick breaking sound. So the guy turned towards us and started to walk. For a bit we just stood there. But then we saw the knife, and he started to pick up speed, so he sprinted out of there. That was the last time we saw the guy. To whoever you are, let's not meet ever again.
Number 2.
This happened when I was 19 or 20. I was an attractive and very petite female, 5'3", about 100 pounds. I was at a beach near my house in New Jersey in the middle of the day, but it was early May and about 60 degrees out, so not too many people were there. Maybe 2 or 3 on the beach. I was by myself in a bathing suit, sitting on my towel reading a book, when this man came up to me. The man was probably in his late 30s, early 40s, fit, and what most people would consider attractive. He sat down on my towel and asked me what I was reading. "Hey baby, what are you reading?" I was already freaked out that a stranger would come up and sit on my towel with me, but I answered. He kept asking questions like my name, age, where I went to school, and I made up all of my answers. Then he moved over and sat right next to me and started putting his hand on my crotch. I screamed and ran, and luckily there was someone else on the beach at the time who looked over at us, so he didn't chase me. I ran back to my car that was in the parking lot about half a mile away. There were no other cars there, and I looked around and didn't see the man anywhere. I assumed my scream and the other person on the beach scared him off. Fast forward 2 or 3 days later, and I get a letter in the mail without a return address. It was stamped from a post office as a town in Pennsylvania, where I remembered the man saying he was from. Keep in mind, I was still living with my parents at the time. I opened the envelope and it's 2 pages, front and back, handwritten from the man. I know I did not tell him any real information about myself, so I have no idea how he found my address or any of the info he wrote about. He knew my full name, the school I went to, I guess all stuff you could find online, my parents' names, and cell phone numbers. He also wrote about seeing me at a place where I was just a few days prior. I was freaking out, and at this point, shaking. He signed his name and left a phone number, but again, no address. I immediately went to the police with the letter in a plastic bag, in case they would look at fingerprints. I told the detective about him touching me on the beach as well. The detective said he couldn't do anything because there was no evidence of a crime, but offered to call and scare him. I agreed. He kept the letter, and I'm assuming he called the man that day and told him to leave me alone. I never heard from him again, but I was sure I saw him following me in a car shortly after. After I ran away on the beach, he must have either followed me back to my house or gotten my license plate number. That's how he would have gotten all the information he wrote about. But I looked everywhere, and there were no cars behind me when I left, or really anywhere in the park. I was paying extremely close attention. I also didn't go straight back to my house. I drove about an hour away to my friend's because I was so freaked out and didn't go home until late that night. So he either followed me all throughout that time, got the information from my license plate, not sure how he would do that since the car is not even registered in my name, or he had been following me previously. So, creepy man on the beach. Let's not meet again.
Number 3.
This took place when I was around 7 or 8, so my brother must have been 12 or 13 when this happened. Since my brother was now considered a teenager, my dad figured it'd be safe to stop asking my G-Ma to pick my brother and I up after school, because he couldn't since he was working. He was an extremely hard-working single father. Anyway, so my brother and I started walking home after school, after getting off the bus. It was like a 2-minute walk back to our place from the bus stop. Shortly after, a middle-aged man with the creepiest fucking vibes started showing up across the street from our house, and he would just stare. Mainly, he wore this beat-up, extremely dirty, and vibrant jumpsuit that looked like it belonged in the 80s. He wouldn't do anything. He'd just stare at our house from across the street. He'd usually appear 5 minutes after we got home, and he'd leave about 5 to 10 minutes before my dad got home. At first, I thought he was just a strange new neighbor. It wasn't uncommon in my area for creepy old men, pedophilic construction workers, and drunk college students to lurk around town. It was about all my dad could afford at the time. After a while, though, I got a bad feeling that he wasn't a neighbor. He grew somewhat ballsy. At this point, he had been openly observing us for about half a year. It soon escalated from him just staring at us when we got home to him physically waiting at my brother and I's bus stop. 1, I already hated going home after school. And 2, now, this creep is practically unavoidable. I was a bundle of nerves, and so was my brother. When we got off the bus and saw the guy standing there staring at us, I immediately grabbed my brother's hand and started fast walking home. I hated hearing his footsteps lurk behind us. Absolutely hated it. My scaredy-cat meter was finally off the charts, and I was begging my brother to call the police. Instead, he grabbed the metal baseball bat that was next to the door and told me that if anyone besides our dad walked through that door, that he'd kill them. I was so mad at him for weeks after that, but looking back now, I kind of extremely admire my prepubescent brother, who would be willing to do anything to protect his little sister. That night, we finally told our dad about our evening visitor. He was furious, but also sad that his kids didn't tell him sooner. We felt like it was somehow our fault that this man was following us. So we figured that my brother and I would get in trouble for the man's actions. A creepy man had been stalking his kids for nearly a year without his knowledge. He was devastated. I sympathize with him now. My dad talked to a woman who waited at the bus stop for her son, and explained the situation to her. She had thought that the man was someone he had asked to watch us, since she noticed our grandma no longer picking us up. After my dad talked to the woman, my brother and I never saw our stalker again. Years later, I found out that the woman, while waiting for her son to get dropped off by the bus, noticed the creep in the same jumpsuit in the same toque. She walked right up to his face and told him, "If you don't leave those poor kids alone, I won't even call the cops. I'll take matters into my own hands and beat the living hell out of you. I never want to see your face around here again." She was a tough, mean-looking lady, but a huge softie with the biggest heart. Anyway, she was mean enough looking that the guy never lurked outside our home or bus stop again. Not sure if this would serve as any significance to you guys, but my upstairs neighbor later claimed that they used to see him go dumpster diving down the street from our home. So, old dude with the creepiest stare I've ever seen, let's not meet again.
Number 4.
I lived the first 18 years of my life in a not very nice part of London, so I got smart very quickly. However, this guy almost slipped past me. When I was younger, I was bullied very badly, and as a result, had very few friends. So when a boy about 3 years older than me took an interest in hanging out with me and wanting to be my friend, I obliged. He'd occasionally walk me home from school and pick my little brother up from school. Pretty soon, rumors started that we were dating and/or sleeping together, which both he and I vociferously denied. He said he wasn't a creep, and that he couldn't see me like that because I was 11 and he was 14 or 15. Our friendship sort of became more distant after I moved schools in the middle of year 8 because of the bullying, but we'd still hang out every couple of weeks until he got a job at a local branch of a large UK supermarket chain, and I went to agricultural college, and as a result, worked stupid hours on a farm. Because of my hours in the winter, I'd often leave home in the dark, and get back in the dark. To top it off, I had to walk through a park to get to a certain train station. Out of the blue on my way back one evening, I bumped into him in the park, and we got chatting, and I foolishly gave away the fact that I had to walk through the park a lot. I never saw him again. I went away to university and made friends, but thought it was odd he hadn't been in contact for so long. About 6 months after I started university, some people I went to school with reached out to me on Facebook and asked if I was aware that my old friend had been arrested and tried at the Old Bailey and was convicted of 1 rape and 2 sexual assaults. I refused to believe it until I got in contact with the police, and the arresting officer recognized me from the evidence gathered from my now ex-friend. When he was arrested, he was found with a picture of me with unimaginable fluids on it. When questioned about the picture, he said that I was the one he always wanted, but couldn't bring himself to do anything to me when I was younger because he saw me as innocent. However, the time he met me in the park, on my way home from the farm, he was going to do something, but as he got closer, he realized that I was wearing steel-toed boots, and I'd beefed up a fair bit because of the physical work I'd been doing. So he didn't want to take his chances and played it cool instead. A really scary thought it is, that he could be roaming the streets fairly soon with a new identity, and no one would have a clue. Part of me is still angry with myself for not seeing him for the monster he is. So, to my vile beast of an ex-friend, let's never meet again, for your sake.
Number 5.
So this happened a while ago, but it still freaks me out. I was going to uni at the time and had the day off. The previous night I'd stayed up pretty late, so the next morning I was definitely keen on a sleep-in. At the time, I was sharing a house with my sister, Liz. She has always been a morning person, and that particular morning I remember hearing her walking around the house, just getting ready for the day. Her boyfriend was staying over, and I could hear them chatting away as I drifted in and out of sleep. I remember them leaving the house together, the door closing behind them, and the car pulling out of the driveway. I knew they'd be going to get some breakfast, but I wasn't ready to get up, so I fell right back asleep. I was used to being alone in the house, and it had never bothered me. In fact, we stupidly often left the front door unlocked during the day when one of us was home. We were living in a city at the time, but had grown up in a really small country town where no one bothered to lock their doors, so I suppose we were just in the habit. I don't know how long I'd been asleep, but I was suddenly startled awake by the sound of the doorbell ringing. It didn't just ring once, but someone was continually pushing it, so it was like a constant, loud ringing sound. I instantly thought it was my sister, just being annoying, trying to wake me up, so I didn't get up right away. The ringing stopped, but Liz and her boyfriend didn't come in. I knew the door would be unlocked, so I wasn't sure why she'd stay outside. I started to think that it was maybe a package guy or something, so I started to think it was maybe a package guy or something. So I climbed out of bed and went to see. When I opened the door, no one was there. I assumed I had just taken too long to get to the door, and whoever it was didn't leave a package or card or anything, so I figured it was no one important. I didn't think anything more of it, not until that afternoon anyway. I was in the lounge, just watching the TV when someone began knocking loudly on the front door. I went to the door, and when I opened it, I was surprised to see 2 police officers standing outside. I stood there, just in shock for a second, wondering what they could possibly want. They explained that they were going door to door, just asking some questions about a case they were working on. They asked me if I had answered the door to anyone else that day, and I instantly said no. Then I remembered the strange doorbell ringing, so I added, "Well, there was someone ringing the bell earlier today, but I was still in bed, so I didn't get to the door in time." They started asking me a lot of questions. Did I see who was at the door? Any cars out the front? What time was this exactly? I answered the best I could. After that, they told me that a couple of guys were going around ringing the doorbells of houses in my area. They would basically wait until the person had opened the door and then burst in, overpower the victim, and rob them at knife point. I later found out that they had chosen this area because a lot of elderly people lived here, and they were easier to overpower, and often kept larger amounts of cash in their homes. It makes me sick to think that people like this exist. Luckily, the police soon caught these guys, and I got a call to let me know that one of the guys had confessed and confirmed that they had intended to rob my house but were, quote, distracted by something before anyone answered. So I am just so thankful that they didn't think to check to see if the main door was unlocked, because they could have literally walked right in on me. It goes without saying that I always make sure the doors are locked now, regardless of who is home.
Hey guys, it's Sir Pent. I just wanted to make this video, number one, because, well, it's been a little while since I posted a narration video, and number two, because I feel like it's been a while since I really called attention to how many people have subscribed to the channel, and it's quite a few now. We're up to like 23, I think. I mean, I know the thumbnail says 20, and so does the title of the video, but I only wrote that because that's a good even number, you know what I mean? 23 just doesn't roll off the tongue as well as 20. But aside from that, I am really thankful that you guys do enjoy watching the videos, and every time I post one I get like consistently like 8, 9, 10 views on it, which, I mean, doesn't sound like much, but from what I've experienced, that's quite a bit. I don't get that many views on them normally, so I don't know, I like it, is what I'm saying. I like it a lot. So yeah, I guess thanks for subscribing to the channel. I really do mean that, and thanks for coming back every time I do post a video. However, you know, every once in a while it is. I try and keep it rhythmic. I'm not good at it, you know. That's why they didn't let me play the drums in high school. I just can't keep that beat. But hell, someday I'll get better at it. You know what I mean? Anyways, if you do want to leave a like on the video, if you've made it this far, please go right ahead. And if you feel like your friends might get a kick out of this, you know, go ahead and share it. Honestly, that helps me more than anything. You'll probably hear a change in the audio. Right now, the heater just kicked on. But no, other than that, I really don't have anything else to say tonight, so I guess keep it spooky, okay?